The alien ships dropped through Earth's sky like falling stars. Their black metal hulls cut through the clouds above the Rocky Mountains without making a sound. Inside the lead ship, Commander Vexitar checked his weapons one more time. His red shell gleamed under the blue lights of the control room. The Zephyrians were the best hunters in the galaxy. Every alien race knew their name and feared them. Today they were hunting something that had escaped from their prison. The Shadow Maw was loose on this small blue planet, and they had come to take it back. The creature was 12 feet tall with claws that could cut through steel. Its black skin was harder than armor, and it could disappear into shadows like smoke. Even the bravest Zephyrian soldiers whispered about Shadow Maws in dark corners. Only 5 had ever been caught alive. Now one was free. "I found the target," said Navigator Kessin. Her long arms moved over the glowing screens. "It's in the mountains near the human town." Vexitar smiled with his sharp teeth. Humans were new to the galaxy. The report said they were weak and stupid. They had no real weapons and lived in small groups. They would be perfect bait to draw the Shadow Maw out of hiding. "Take us down," Vexitar ordered. "Stay hidden until we're ready." Their ships landed on a high ridge above the human settlement. The town was called Pine Ridge, and it sat in a valley, between tall mountains. The aliens set up their camp and turned on their hiding shields. Now the humans couldn't see them even if they looked right at their ships. Through his scope, Vexitar watched the humans below. They walked around their small buildings without any fear. They had no guards and no weapons that he could see. Some of them were smaller than others. He guessed those were the young ones, perfect prey for a hungry Shadow Maw. "These creatures eat plants," said Scout Riltak. He was reading the data from his scanner. "Look at their teeth. Look at their weak bodies. They can't fight anything bigger than themselves." Vexitar clicked his claws together in satisfaction. This would be easier than he thought. The Shadow Maw would smell the humans and come hunting. When it showed itself, the Zephyrians would be ready with their traps and nets. But they were wrong about the humans, and they were wrong about what was going to happen next. Down in the valley, Jake Morrison was having a bad day. The 32-year-old Omo park ranger had been tracking strange signs in the forest for 3 days. Animals were going missing, big animals like deer and elk. Something was killing them, but he couldn't figure out what. The claw marks he found on the trees were wrong. Too big, too deep, and too clean. No bear or mountain lion could make marks like that. The scratches went 8 feet up the trunk of a pine tree. Whatever made them was huge and had claws like knives. Jake's dog Rex was acting strange too. The German Shepherd was brave and strong. He had faced down bears and wolves without backing away. But today Rex was scared. He kept looking at the dark, spaces between the trees, and whining. His ears were flat against his head and his tail was tucked between his legs. "What's wrong, boy?" Jake asked. He knelt down and scratched Rex behind the ears. "You smell something I don't?" Rex just whined again and pressed close to Jake's leg. The dog was trying to tell him something, but Jake didn't understand what. Jake stood up and looked around the forest. The woods were too quiet. No birds singing, no squirrels chattering. Even the insects had stopped buzzing. It was like every living thing had run away or was hiding. In his 10 years as a ranger, Jake had never felt anything like this. He pulled out his radio and called the main office. "This is Morrison. I'm at Sector 7 near Bear Creek. The animal situation is getting worse. I found more claw marks and they're bigger than before." "Copy that, Jake," came the voice of his supervisor, Linda Hayes. "Any idea what we're dealing with?" "Not yet," Jake said, "but it's big, really big, and it's not from around here. I've never seen anything like these tracks." High above him on the ridge, the Zephyrian hunters were getting excited. Their scanners had found the Shadow Maw. It was moving through the forest toward the human settlement. The creature was hunting, and it had picked up the scent of easy prey. "Target is 2 miles from the human town," reported Kessin. "Moving fast, through the trees." "Good," said Vexitar. "Let it take a few humans first. The feeding will make it slow and careless. Then we strike." The other Zephyrians checked their weapons and prepared their capture gear. They had done this many times before on many different worlds. Find a dangerous creature, let it hunt some locals, then catch it when it was full and sleepy. It always worked. But the Shadow Maw wasn't heading for the town. It had caught a different scent, something that interested it more than helpless humans. It could smell the alien hunters on the ridge above. It knew they were looking for it, and unlike the humans below, these creatures smelled like fear and aggression. They smelled like a challenge. The Shadow Maw changed direction and began climbing toward the Zephyrian camp. Its 6 eyes glowed with red light in the growing darkness. It was time to hunt the hunters. Jake Morrison felt the change in the air before he heard the sounds. The forest became even quieter, if that was possible. Then came the noise from up the mountain, something that sounded like metal being torn apart, followed by alien screams that made his blood run cold. Rex barked once and then ran to hide behind Jake's truck. Even from 2 miles away, the dog could sense that something terrible was happening, on the ridge. Jake looked up at the mountain and saw flashes of light through the trees. Not lightning, something else. Something that pulsed and sparked like electricity but wrong somehow. The screams got louder, and now he could hear other sounds, roaring, snarling, the sound of something very big and very angry. What the hell is going on up there? Jake whispered to himself. He grabbed his binoculars and tried to see what was happening, but the trees were too thick. All he could make out were more flashes of light and shadows moving too fast to follow. Then everything went quiet again. Even quieter than before. Like the whole mountain was holding its breath and waiting for something to happen. Jake made a decision that would change everything. Instead of calling for backup or waiting for morning, he decided to investigate. He had been a ranger for 10 years, and he had never walked away from anything that might hurt the people in his care. Whatever was up there, he was going to find it. He left Rex tied to the truck with plenty of water and food. If something bad happened, at least the dog would be safe. Then Jake grabbed his flashlight and his first aid kit and started climbing toward the ridge. He had no idea that he was walking toward the most dangerous creature in the galaxy, and he had no idea that what happened next would terrify an entire alien civilization and change humanity's place in the universe forever. The Shadow Maw hit the alien camp like a black storm. It came out of nowhere, moving faster than the Zephyrian eyes could follow. 1 second their camp was quiet and safe behind their hiding shields. The next second, chaos. Commander Vextar saw his best warrior, Zektar, get thrown 30 feet through the air. The soldier hit a tree and didn't get up. His armor was torn open like paper and green blood pooled beneath him. The Shadow Maw roared, a sound that made the mountains shake and the aliens' bones rattle inside their shells. Spread out, Vextar screamed into his radio. Use the containment weapons. But the Shadow Maw was too fast and too smart. It knew their tactics. It had been in their cages for 3 years, watching and learning. Now it used that knowledge against them. When they fired their energy nets, it vanished into the shadows between the trees. When they tried to surround it, it appeared behind them and struck before disappearing again. Scout Riltak managed to get 1 shot with his stun rifle. The blue energy beam hit the creature in the shoulder, but it barely slowed down. The Shadow Maw turned toward him with all 6 red eyes blazing with hate. Riltak ran faster than he had ever run in his life, but he could hear the creature gaining on him with every step. The human town, Vextar shouted. Drive it toward the humans. The surviving Zephyrians fired their weapons into the air and made as much noise as possible. They wanted to scare the Shadow Maw away from their position. The plan worked, but not the way they hoped. Instead of running away from the noise, the creature got angry. It attacked them even harder. Navigator Kessin watched 2 more of her team get torn apart by claws that moved too fast to see. The Shadow Maw was playing with them now, like a cat playing with mice. It could have killed them all in the first few seconds, but it was having fun making them suffer. This is impossible, she whispered into her communicator. The creature is stronger than our records show. Much stronger. The Shadow Maw heard her voice and turned in her direction. Kessin saw her death in those burning red eyes. She closed her own eyes and waited for the pain, but it never came. The creature had heard something else. something that made it stop and listen. A human voice was calling from down the mountain. The words were in the primitive human language, but the tone was calm and friendly. The shadow maw tilted its massive head and listened harder. It had never heard a voice like that before, not afraid, not angry, just curious. Jake Morrison was climbing through the dark forest following the sounds of the fight. His flashlight cut through the shadows as he pushed through thick bushes and over fallen logs. He could smell smoke and something else. Something sharp and metallic that reminded him of blood. "Hello?" he called out. "Is anyone up there? Do you need help?" The sounds of fighting had stopped, but Jake could hear heavy breathing and what sounded like whimpering. Some kind of animal was hurt and scared. His ranger training kicked in and he forgot about being careful. Something needed his help. He came to a small clearing where the trees opened up to show the night sky. The ground was torn up like a bomb had gone off. Strange pieces of metal and glass were scattered everywhere. Some of them were still glowing with soft blue light. "What the hell happened here?" Jake muttered. Then he saw it. The shadow maw stood at the far edge of the clearing, watching him. In the light from his flashlight, Jake could see it was huge, bigger than any animal he had ever seen. Its black skin looked like armor, and its claws were longer than his fingers. 6 red eyes stared at him without blinking. Jake's first thought was that someone's exotic pet had escaped. Rich people sometimes kept illegal animals, and this thing looked like it might be some kind of big cat or bear from another country. It was hurt too. He could see wounds on its side where something had burned through its thick hide. "Easy there, big guy," Jake said in his calm ranger voice. "I'm not going to hurt you." The shadow maw had never heard words like these before. In its long life, every creature that saw it either ran away screaming or tried to fight. But this small human just stood there talking to it like it was a lost dog. The creature didn't know what to do. From their hiding places around the clearing, the surviving Zephyrians watched in horror. The human was standing 10 feet away from the most dangerous predator in the galaxy, and he was talking to it like they were old friends. "The human has lost its mind," whispered Scout Riltak. "Fear has broken its brain." But Jake wasn't afraid. He was doing what he did every day as a park ranger. He dealt with scared and dangerous animals all the time. Black bears, mountain lions, angry moose. This thing was bigger and stranger than anything he'd seen before, but the rules were the same. Stay calm, don't make sudden moves, and let the animal know you're not a threat. "You're hurt, aren't you?" Jake took a small step forward. "Someone's been shooting at you, that's not right." The shadow maw watched the human move closer. Every instinct told it to attack. This creature was small and weak and would be easy to kill. But something was wrong. The human smelled different. Not like prey, not like predator either, like something else entirely. Jake could see the animal was confused and in pain. The burns on its side looked bad, and there was green blood dripping from several cuts. Whatever had happened here, this poor creature had been hurt by someone with high-tech weapons. "It's okay," Jake said softly. "I work with animals. I can help you." He reached into his backpack and pulled out his first aid kit. The movement was slow and careful, nothing that would scare the creature. The shadow maw watched his hands but didn't move to attack. Commander Vextar felt his heart stop beating. The human was reaching for something, probably a weapon. The shadow maw would tear him apart in seconds, and then it would be angry and even more dangerous than before. This was about to become a massacre. But Jake pulled out a small bottle of water and a clean cloth. He poured some water on the cloth and held it up so the creature could see it. "This will help clean those wounds," he said. "I promise I won't hurt you." The shadow maw stared at the wet cloth. In its alien mind, this made no sense. The human was offering to heal its injuries. Predators didn't heal other predators. Prey didn't heal anything. What was this creature? Jake took another step forward. The shadow maw could have killed him with one swipe of its claws, but it just stood there watching. Its 6 eyes never left his face, but it didn't growl or bare its teeth. If anything, it looked curious. "That's it," Jake said. "Good boy. Or girl. I can't really tell from here." The words meant nothing to the shadow maw. But the tone was gentle and friendly. No creature had ever spoken to it that way before. In the research labs where it had been kept, the voices were always cold and clinical. In the wild, other predators communicated through roars and snarls, but this human's voice was warm and safe. The alien hunters hiding in the trees couldn't believe what they were seeing. The most feared creature in the galaxy was letting a human walk right up to it. Some of them started to wonder if the human was using some kind of advanced mind control technology, but their scanners showed nothing. No energy fields, no psionic emanations, no technological enhancements of any kind. Jake was now only 5 feet away from the Shadow Maw, close enough to see the intelligence in its strange red eyes, close enough to smell its alien scent like ozone and metal, close enough to die instantly if it decided to attack. But the creature just watched him with what looked like fascination. Its massive head tilted to one side like a dog trying to understand a new sound. Jake smiled and held out his hand palm up, the way he did with nervous horses. See? No weapons, just want to help. The Shadow Maw looked at the outstretched hand. Such a small, soft thing. It could bite it off without effort. But the human wasn't pulling away or showing fear. He was offering trust to a creature that could kill him without thinking. And in that moment, something changed in the Shadow Maw's alien mind. For the first time in its life, it encountered something that didn't fit into the simple categories of predator and prey. This human was something new. Something it had no word for. Something it wanted to understand. Jake reached out and touched the Shadow Maw's massive head. His hand landed right between two of its glowing red eyes. The creature's skin felt warm and smooth, like leather that had been sitting in the sun. The Shadow Maw went completely still. From their hiding spots, the Zephyrian hunters stopped breathing. They were watching something that should have been impossible, their most deadly enemy. The creature that had just torn apart half their team was letting a human pet it like a house cat. "This cannot be happening," whispered Navigator Kessin. Her voice shook with disbelief. The human should be dead. The Shadow Maw kills everything it touches. But Jake Morrison was very much alive. He kept his hand on the creature's head and spoke in the same calm voice he used with frightened animals every day. "There we go. You're not so scary, are you? Just a big animal that got hurt and confused." The Shadow Maw had never experienced anything like this before. The human's touch was gentle, not painful. The words were soft, not threatening. Every other creature it had ever met either ran away or tried to hurt it, but this small human was doing neither. He was showing kindness. The concept of kindness didn't exist in the Shadow Maw's world. It was a predator that lived alone and trusted nothing. It knew only hunger, anger, and fear. But now it felt something new, something warm and peaceful that it had no name for. Jake noticed the creature was starting to relax. Its muscles weren't as tight and its breathing was getting slower. The 6 red eyes were still watching him, but they didn't look angry anymore. They looked curious. "You're just lost, aren't you?" Jake said. "A long way from home." He was right about that, though he had no idea how far from home the creature really was. The Shadow Maw came from a world of eternal darkness on the other side of the galaxy. It had been brought to the Zephyrian research station as a baby and had never known anything but cages and laboratories. Jake pulled out his water bottle and poured some into his hand. "You must be thirsty after all that running around." He held his cupped palm up to the Shadow Maw's mouth. The creature looked at the water for a long moment, then carefully lowered its massive head and drank. Its tongue was rough like a cat's, but it was gentle against Jake's skin. Commander Vextar felt his sanity slipping away. He was watching a human hand-feed water to a creature that had killed Zephyrian warriors with ease. The human's palm could have been bitten off in one snap, but the Shadow Maw was drinking from it like a tame animal. "This is wrong," he whispered to himself. "This breaks every law of nature." But Jake was just getting started. He could see the creature was still in pain from its wounds, so he opened his first aid kit and pulled out some antiseptic wipes. "These might sting a little," he warned, "but they'll keep those cuts from getting infected. The Shadow Maw didn't understand the words, but it understood the tone. The human was telling it that something unpleasant was about to happen, but it was for its own good. The creature held still while Jake cleaned its wounds. The antiseptic did sting, and the Shadow Maw made a low rumbling sound, but it didn't pull away or try to attack. It trusted this strange human who spoke so gently and moved so carefully. Jake finished cleaning the worst of the cuts and stepped back to admire his work. There. That should help you heal up faster. The Shadow Maw looked down at its cleaned wounds, then back at Jake. In its alien mind, it was trying to understand what had just happened. This human had caused it pain by cleaning the cuts, but the pain was different from the pain of being hurt. This pain was meant to help, not harm. The creature made a decision that would have shocked every xenobiologist in the galaxy. It lowered its massive body to the ground and rolled onto its back, exposing its belly to Jake. In the language of predators everywhere, this was complete surrender. Total trust. Jake grinned and rubbed the creature's belly like he would pet a dog. The Shadow Maw's skin was softer there, and he could feel its heartbeat. It was beating fast, but not from fear. From excitement. "You like that, don't you, big guy?" Jake laughed. "You're just a big puppy." The sound of Jake's laughter was something the Shadow Maw had never heard before. It was pure joy, with no trace of fear or anger. The creature found the sound pleasant and wanted to hear more of it. Scout Riltak was watching from behind a fallen log, his 4 eyes wide with terror. "The human is making pleasure sounds at the creature," he reported in a shaking voice. "And the Shadow Maw is responding positively." This is impossible. But it was happening right in front of them. The most feared predator in known space was playing with a human like they were old friends. Jake had found a large stick and was waving it around, trying to get the creature's attention. "Want to play fetch?" Jake asked. He threw the stick across the clearing. The Shadow Maw watched the stick fly through the air and land near a tree. It looked at Jake, then at the stick, then back at Jake. Its alien mind was trying to process this new concept. The human had thrown something away, but he seemed to want the Shadow Maw to bring it back. Play was not something the Shadow Maw understood. In its world, you either hunted or were hunted. You fought or you fled. You killed or you died. But this human was suggesting something completely different. Something that served no survival purpose but might be fun. The creature got to its feet and walked over to the stick. It picked the stick up in its mouth, careful not to break it with its sharp teeth. Then it carried it back to Jake and dropped it at his feet. "Good boy," Jake said, scratching behind what he thought might be the creature's ears. "You're a natural at this." The Shadow Maw felt something it had never experienced before. Pride. The human was pleased with what it had done, and that made the creature happy in a way it couldn't explain. They played fetch for 20 minutes. Every time Jake threw the stick, the Shadow Maw brought it back. Every time it returned the stick, Jake praised it and gave it pets. The creature began to understand that making the human happy made it feel good too. The watching Zephyrians were having mental breakdowns. They had spent their entire lives believing that the universe was divided into hunters and prey, predators and victims, but what they were seeing challenged everything they thought they knew about the natural order. "The human has no fear," whispered Kessin. "No aggression, no defensive postures. It treats the Shadow Maw like a domesticated pet." "Maybe it is domesticated," suggested Realtak. "Maybe the humans have technology we don't understand. Maybe they can control minds, but their scanners showed no technology at all." Jake Morrison was exactly what he appeared to be, a simple human with no weapons, no armor, and no enhancements. He was just a man who was good with animals. As the night went on, Jake taught the Shadow Maw simple commands. Sit made it lower, its body to the ground. Stay made it remain in place even when Jake walked away. Come brought it trotting over to his side like an obedient dog. Each successful command earned the creature more praise and petting. The Shadow Maw learned quickly, because it wanted to please the strange human who had shown it kindness when everyone else had shown it. Cruelty. "You're a smart one, aren't you?" Jake said, giving the creature a final pat. "But I need to get back to my truck. Rex is probably worried about me." The shadow maw whined when Jake started to walk away. It didn't want this wonderful experience to end. For the first time in its life, it had felt safe and happy. It had learned what it meant to be cared for. Jake heard the whining and turned back. The creature was following him with its head down, like a puppy that had been scolded. "Oh, you want to come with me?" Jake asked. "I don't know if that's a good idea. You're pretty big, and you might scare people." But the shadow maw kept following him, staying just a few steps behind. It had found something precious in this human's kindness, and it wasn't ready to let it go. The Zephyrian hunters watched the human and the shadow maw disappear into the forest together. They sat in their hiding places for a long time, trying to process what they had witnessed. Finally, Commander Vextar spoke into his communicator. "All units return to the ships. We're leaving this planet immediately." "But Commander," protested Riltak, "what about the mission? What about the shadow maw?" Vextar's voice was hollow with defeat. "The mission is over. We're not hunters here. We're prey, and that human just proved it." Jake Morrison walked back toward his truck with the shadow maw following close behind him like a giant dog. The creature stayed about 6 feet away, matching his pace perfectly. Every few steps, Jake would look back and smile at his new friend. "You're really something else, aren't you?" Jake said. "I've never seen anything like you before." The shadow maw made a soft rumbling sound that Jake decided was probably its version of a purr. The sound was deep and powerful, like a truck engine running on low power. It seemed happy. When they reached the parking area, Rex started barking from inside Jake's truck. The German shepherd had heard them coming and was excited to see his human partner. But when Rex saw the massive creature behind Jake, the dog went quiet and pressed himself against the far side of the truck cab. "It's okay, Rex," Jake called out. "He's friendly." Rex whined and stayed where he was. His dog instincts were telling him that the thing with Jake was the most dangerous predator he had ever smelled. But Jake seemed completely comfortable with it, so Rex tried to trust his human's judgment. Jake opened his cooler and pulled out his lunch. He had packed 2 sandwiches, an apple, and some beef jerky for his long day in the forest. Now he was glad he had brought extra food. "Are you hungry, big guy?" Jake asked the shadow maw. "I bet you are after all that running around." He unwrapped one of his sandwiches and broke off a piece. The shadow maw watched him carefully, its 6 red eyes focused on the food. Jake held out the piece of sandwich, and the creature gently took it from his fingers. The shadow maw had never tasted anything like human food before. In the alien laboratories, it had been fed nutritional paste and live prey animals. This sandwich had flavors it didn't recognize: bread, meat, cheese, and vegetables all mixed together. It was strange but not unpleasant. "You like that?" Jake asked. He broke off another piece and offered it to the creature. "It's turkey and Swiss on whole wheat. My wife makes them for me." The shadow maw ate the second piece more eagerly. It was starting to understand that this human would continue to share food as long as it remained calm and friendly. In its alien mind, this was the behavior of a pack leader sharing resources with a subordinate. But the roles seemed backwards. The smaller, weaker creature was feeding the larger, stronger one. Jake finished feeding his sandwich to the shadow maw and opened the bag of beef jerky. The creature's reaction to the dried meat was immediate and enthusiastic. It made happy rumbling sounds and gently bumped Jake with its massive head, asking for more. "Easy there," Jake laughed. "Don't knock me over. You're bigger than you think." From their ships on the ridge above, the Zephyrian hunters watched this scene through their long-range scopes. What they saw challenged everything they believed about the natural order of the universe. "The human is hand-feeding the shadow maw," reported Navigator Kessin. Her voice was barely a whisper. "It's sharing its own food supply with the creature." Commander Vextar adjusted his scope to get a better view. "Impossible. No prey species voluntarily feeds a predator. It goes against every survival instinct." But Jake wasn't thinking like prey. He was thinking like a park ranger who had spent years working with wild animals. Feed them, gain their trust, and they'll usually calm down. It was basic animal psychology, and it worked on everything from angry bears to spooked horses. "Good boy," Jake said, giving the shadow maw the last piece of jerky. Now let's see how smart you really are. Jake picked up a stick about 3 feet long and held it in front of the creature. The Shadow Maw looked at the stick with interest, remembering their earlier game. Sit, Jake commanded, using the same firm voice he used with Rex. The Shadow Maw immediately lowered its body to the ground. Its massive form settled into a sitting position that would have been impossible for most Earth animals of its size. Good. Now stay. Jake walked 20 feet away and set the stick on the ground. The Shadow Maw watched but didn't move from its sitting position. Its 6 eyes tracked Jake's every movement, but it remained perfectly still. Come. The creature stood up and walked over to Jake, stopping just in front of him. Jake reached out and scratched behind its ear-like appendages. The Shadow Maw leaned into the touch, clearly enjoying the attention. Scout Riltak was watching through his scope with growing horror. Commander, the human is giving the Shadow Maw complex commands, and it's obeying. This level of behavioral control should take years to achieve. How long has this human been training the creature? Asked another hunter. According to our surveillance, they met for the first time less than 2 hours ago. Kessin replied. The implications of this statement hit the hunting party like a physical blow. In 2 hours, a human had accomplished something that Zephyrian animal trainers couldn't do in years of work. The creature that had killed their finest warriors was now sitting, staying, and coming on command like a trained pet. Jake was enjoying himself. He had always been good with animals, but this creature was special. It learned faster than any animal he had ever worked with, and it seemed genuinely eager to please him. Let's try something harder, Jake said. Roll over. He made a rolling motion with his hands to show the Shadow Maw what he wanted. The creature watched his gesture carefully, then slowly lowered itself to the ground and rolled onto its back. Its massive belly was exposed, showing the softer skin underneath its armored hide. Perfect. Jake laughed. He knelt down and rubbed the creature's belly like he would pet a dog. The Shadow Maw made rumbling sounds of pleasure and kicked one of its legs like a happy puppy. This sight broke the last of the Zephyrian hunter's sanity. The most feared predator in the galaxy was lying on its back, having its belly rubbed by a human. It was acting like a domesticated animal that had known this human its entire life. This is not possible, Vexitar said. His voice was shaking. Shadow Maws don't submit to anyone. They're apex predators. They're killing machines. Maybe we were wrong about them, suggested Riltak. Maybe we were wrong about the humans too. The thought sent ice through every Zephyrian's veins. What if the humans weren't primitive prey animals? What if they were something far more dangerous? What if they were predators so advanced that they could dominate other apex species through pure psychological manipulation? Jake helped the Shadow Maw back to its feet and looked around for something else to try. He spotted a fallen log about 50 feet away and got an idea. Can you jump? He asked the creature. Let's find out. Jake jogged toward the log with the Shadow Maw following behind him. When he reached the log, he stopped and pointed at it. Jump, he said, making a leaping motion with his hands. The Shadow Maw understood immediately. It backed up a few steps, then ran forward and leaped over the log with incredible grace. For something so large, it moved with surprising agility. Wow, Jake applauded. That was amazing. Do it again. The creature's alien face showed what might have been pride. It had pleased its new pack leader, and that made it happy. It jumped over the log 3 more times, each jump more confident than the last. They played together for another hour. Jake taught the Shadow Maw to shake hands by lifting one of its massive claws with both of his hands. He showed it how to play dead by falling down dramatically and lying still. The creature copied everything he did with enthusiasm. By the time they were finished, the Shadow Maw had learned a dozen simple tricks. It could sit, stay, come, roll over, jump, shake hands, play dead, and even dance in a circle when Jake spun his finger around. Each successful trick earned it praise and petting, which the creature craved more than food. The Zephyrian hunting party had seen enough. Their leader, Commander Vexitar, made the decision that would change galactic history. All units return to ships immediately, he ordered. Emergency departure protocols. We leave this system now. But Commander, protested one of his warriors. What about the mission? What about our reputation? Vexitar's voice was hollow with defeat. Our reputation is finished. If word gets out that humans can domesticate shadow maws in a matter of hours, every species in the galaxy will know that we're not the ultimate hunters. We're just another prey species that got lucky for a while. As the alien ships prepared for departure, Jake was saying goodbye to his new friend. The sun was coming up, and he needed to get back to his ranger duties, but he hated to leave the creature alone in the forest. I have to go to work, Jake explained. But maybe I'll see you again tomorrow. The shadow maw whined softly and nuzzled against Jake's shoulder. It didn't want this wonderful human to leave. For the first time in its life, it had experienced joy and companionship. It had learned what it meant to be loved. Jake gave the creature one final pat and walked back to his truck. The shadow maw watched him go, its 6 red eyes filled with something that might have been sadness. It had found something precious in this strange human's kindness, and now it was being taken away. As Jake drove down the mountain road, he looked in his rearview mirror and saw the massive creature sitting where he had left it, watching his truck disappear into the distance. He made a mental note to come back tomorrow and check on his new friend. Behind him, invisible alien ships fled into space carrying news that would terrify the galaxy. The Zephyrian ships broke through Earth's atmosphere and into the black void of space. Behind them, they left their most important mission unfinished and their reputation in ruins. Commander Vextar sat in his command chair, staring at the blue planet shrinking in their rear display. Set course for the home system, he ordered. Maximum speed. Commander, asked Navigator Kessin, what do we tell the Council? How do we explain our failure? Vexitar was quiet for a long time. How could he explain what they had seen? How could he tell the greatest hunters in the galaxy that a primitive human had accomplished in hours what they couldn't do in years? How could he describe watching their most feared enemy roll over and play dead for a creature that had no claws, no armor, and no weapons? We tell them the truth. Vextar said finally, the humans are not what we thought. They're not prey. They're something else entirely. Word of the Zephyrian retreat spread through the galactic communication networks within days. The greatest hunting guild in known space had abandoned a mission and fled from a backwater planet. The news caused shockwaves across dozens of civilizations. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, the rock-eating granite lords stopped their eternal digging to discuss the implications. If the Zephyrians were afraid of humans, what did that mean for species like them who had never hunted anything more dangerous than metal ore? In the ocean depths of Proxima Centauri Sea, the tentacled depth swimmers whispered to each other in the crushing darkness. They had always believed that the dryland species were weak and soft, but if humans could scare the Zephyrians, maybe the surface worlds were more dangerous than they thought. The insect-like hive queens of Wolf 359 gathered in their crystal palaces to debate what this news meant. Their collective consciousness had always seen individual creatures as inferior to the group mind, but perhaps these humans had their own form of collective power that the galaxy didn't understand. Meanwhile, Jake Morrison went back to his normal life as a park ranger. He finished his shift, filed his reports, and went home to his wife Lisa in their small house at the edge of Pine Ridge. He told her about the strange animal he had found in the forest, but he left out the details about its size and the weird technology scattered around the clearing. It was probably someone's illegal pet, Lisa said as she served dinner. Rich people sometimes buy exotic animals and then abandon them when they get too big to handle. Maybe, Jake agreed. But this one was different, really smart, almost like it understood everything I was saying. The next morning, Jake returned to the forest clearing where he had met the creature. He brought extra food and a better first aid kit, hoping to find his new friend again. But the clearing was empty. The strange metal debris was gone, and there were no signs that anything unusual had happened there. Jake searched the area for hours but found no trace of the creature. It was like the whole encounter had been a dream. The only evidence that something had happened was a large depression in the earth where the creature had rolled over, and a few tufts of black fur caught on nearby branches. He never saw the shadow maw again, but sometimes on quiet nights he thought he heard a distant howling from deep in the mountains. It wasn't threatening or hungry. It sounded lonely, like a dog crying for its lost master. The shadow maw had hidden itself in a cave high up in the Rockies after Jake left. The creature spent its days hunting deer and elk to survive, but its nights were filled with memories of gentle hands and kind words. It had experienced something precious with that human, and it didn't understand why it had been taken away. Sometimes the creature would practice the tricks Jake had taught it. It would sit by itself in the darkness, roll over on the cold stone floor and jump over fallen rocks. But without Jake's praise and encouragement, the actions felt empty and meaningless. 3 months after the encounter, official reports began reaching Earth's governments. Alien ships had been detected in the solar system, but they had left without making contact. The ships matched no known human technology and appeared to be of extraterrestrial origin. The reports were classified and buried in government files. The public never learned that humanity had been visited by aliens or that those aliens had left in apparent fear. The galaxy's first impression of human civilization was based on watching one park ranger play with a creature that terrified their greatest warriors. Within a year, Earth's location was marked in galactic databases with a simple notation: approach with extreme caution. Inhabited by unknown apex predator species. Recommend avoiding all contact. The Zephyrian Hunters Guild, once the most feared organization in the galaxy, found their reputation in tatters. Other species began questioning their abilities and refusing their services. If they couldn't handle one primitive planet, how could they be trusted with serious hunting contracts? Commander Vextar retired from active duty and spent his remaining years writing classified reports about the human encounter. His documents became required reading for any species considering contact with Earth. The reports were filled with warnings about humanity's apparent ability to psychologically dominate apex predators through unknown means. They show no fear, Vexatar wrote in his final report. They approach the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy as if they were harmless pets. This suggests either complete ignorance of danger, which seems unlikely given their obvious intelligence, or absolute confidence in their ability to handle any threat. I believe the latter explanation is correct. Humans appear to be apex predators so advanced that they no longer require physical weapons or technological enhancements. They have evolved beyond the need for claws, armor, or energy weapons. Instead, they rely on pure psychological dominance to control other species. This makes them perhaps the most dangerous creatures we have ever encountered. The report concluded with a recommendation that all galactic civilizations avoid Earth until humanity's true capabilities could be better understood. The recommendation was accepted unanimously by the Galactic Council. As the years passed, stories about humans grew in the telling. They became legends whispered in the dark corners of alien space stations, tales of creatures so confident in their power that they played with apex predators like children played with toys. Stories of beings who could tame the untamable through nothing more than kindness and patience. The truth was much simpler and much more terrifying to alien minds. Humans had spent millions of years turning apex predators into companions. They called them dogs, cats, horses, and dozens of other names. The process was so natural to humans that they barely thought about it. Jake Morrison never learned that his simple act of kindness had changed humanity's place in the galaxy. He never knew that his willingness to help an injured animal had marked his entire species as apex predators to be feared and avoided. He continued working as a park ranger for another 30 years before retiring. He dealt with bears, mountain lions, wolves, and countless other dangerous animals. To him, they were all just creatures that needed understanding and respect. He never met another alien, but he never stopped looking for his strange friend from that night in the forest. And sometimes, when the wind was right and the moon was dark, Jake thought he could hear that lonely howling echoing through the mountains. It always made him smile and wonder what had happened to the big gentle creature that had trusted him enough to roll over and show its belly. He never knew that his kindness had saved humanity from becoming targets for galactic hunters. He never learned that his simple act of compassion had given his species a reputation as the most dangerous predators in the known universe. But perhaps that was for the best. After all, the most dangerous predators are often the ones who don't realize how dangerous they are.